Hello, everyone. Hi, happy Monday. Nice to see you all. Thanks so much for joining. We are super excited about today's workshop talking all things salary success in 2022. For those of you who I haven't met, hello, my name is Meggie, and I'm the founder of a company called PepTalkHer, and we're on a mission to close the gender pay gap. And we are massive fans, of course, of feminine success and everything that Yaha's doing as well. So thanks so much for hosting us today and introducing us to your community.
For sure, for sure. So, for those of you who may not know who I am Yaya Smith. Most of you here know me, founder of Feminine Success, all about helping you not only create success in your professional life, but to marry that success with your personal life as you go deeper in your feminine journey. And today we are here for my community who is here. Meggie is amazing. I love, love, love her work. I love her mission. She's completely focused on helping women to earn more. Y'all know I love a well-paid woman. Helping women to earn more, and that is her expertise. So if you have questions today about negotiating your salary, how to position yourself to earn more, now is the time to ask those questions.
Totally. So we've got a half hour together today, and we want to be respectful of your time, but we really want to make this super interactive. So if you have any questions, if you're about to go in for a raise, if you're thinking, ooh, maybe I should, I don't know where to start, let me know in the chat. You can send it to me privately or pop it in the group chat, and we're going to answer as many of those questions for you as we can. But I'd love to know as well, where's everyone joining us from? Hello, I am in downtown New York City today. I'm originally Australian, hence my kind of unusual accent. But I'd love to know where you are joining us from today as well. And I've got a couple of different slides that I thought might be helpful that I can share with you so that you've got some frameworks that you can use going forward. So grab out a pen, notepad. If you're digital, grab out your cell phone. Feel free to take photos as we go along. That's no problem at all. I would love you to utilize these resources to negotiate more for yourself. And hello from downtown Canada. I'm sure it's freezing where you are. It's snowing. Well, it snowed the other day and it hasn't melted yet here in New York City. Hey, Jasmine, nice to meet you. Probably a lot warmer in lovely California. And hi, Kai, just down the road. Awesome. So listen, let's jump into a little bit of content for today before we jump into your Q&A. As I said, send through any questions into the chat, no problem. Quick question. If I said to you, you have 20 minutes to handle a salary negotiation. If I said to you, you got 20 minutes and then you've got to go and negotiate for your salary, how would that make you feel? Let me know in the chat what word comes up for you. Yeah, is there any particular word or feeling that comes up for you if you had to negotiate on the fly in 20 minutes?
Excited. For me,
Awesome.
I love negotiation. I love conversation, and being an entrepreneur, which is vastly different from working in corporate, I've learned to love selling. So excited is the first thing. It's like, ooh, 20 minutes. I got
Woo!
this.
Well, you know what I love? I love what you just said then. You said like I'm excited to have a discussion. I'm excited to talk to people. And I think a lot of the time, yeah, we kind of like we build up this sense of negotiation in our head as like this absolute nightmare, like a bomb's going to explode. And I think that's reflected in the chat, right? Like a lot of us, it makes us feel stressful, anxious, like a bit heart palpitations, sweaty palms, sweaty armpits, whatever. Um, and that's really normal. And I just want to validate that if that's how you feel, that's super normal. I would say 80% of people that I work with, that's their instinctive reaction. But I want you to remember that actually all of us know how to negotiate. If you have kids, or maybe you're like me and you have very cute nieces and nephews, you will have seen them negotiate with you, right? When you want them to go to bed, but they want the candy, there's a bit of a dance that happens from the age of, what do you reckon, Yaya? Like 12, 18 months? Kids know how to negotiate, don't they?
Yes, very much so. I have four, and all of them are amazing negotiators. And it's so interesting because the excitement does not negate the fact that my armpits would be sweating too.
Yeah.
But the sweaty armpits wouldn't be my focus. The focus is like, I'm about to kill this because Understanding your value. I think you talk a lot about like knowing your worth. And that's something I talk about a lot as well. And knowing your worth is so important. You keep it on deck. Like they say, always know what you're contributing to the environment.
100%, and that's the thing. So you can be excited for the conversation. We've got a couple of people in the chat saying there's opportunity. And I think that's a really cool way to frame it too, right? Like any negotiation, it is truly just a conversation. I know it doesn't always feel like that, and we can build it up in our head to feel a lot like, bigger than Ben Hur or whatever. But truly, when you look at the definition, to Yaya's point, like a negotiation technically is just a discussion. If you boil it down, it's a chat between a couple of parties, normally two of you, looking to reach an agreement. So it's you and your boss, you and your client, whatever the case may be, you and your kids trying to get them to go to bed. It's a discussion between two parties, and we both want to get a really great outcome in an ideal world, right? So I think if we can start to reframe our mindset around negotiation away from, I'm going to get screwed over, or I'm going to screw them over, like that kind of combative sense, and turn it more towards the fact that it's actually not a war or a fight or an argument, and it doesn't have to be. You can approach these conversations as a discussion. And I think, the reality is that for people who identify as female, for people of color, there is unconscious bias and discrimination that impacts us, right? So these discussions are harder for certain groups of people, which may be a lot of us here today, right? So that's a fact. I don't like it, but that's a fact. So if we know that that's the case, what we can then do is prepare to go into that negotiation to give ourselves the best possible chance for success, and also to mitigate as best as we can against some of those unconscious biases and discriminatory moments that may sadly occur in the workplace, right? And if that's happens to you, feel free to pop it in the chat if you'd like to share. But what I want to talk about today is when we have this negotiation conversation, the way that you frame the chat, even just purely through your tone of voice, right? Like, so the way that you speak, your body language, are you open? Are you engaged? Versus I want to talk to you about my salary today. See how even just like the body language, like it seems quite stern, or even worse if you sit there like this. Or, if you are a sweaty mess, which happens to a lot of us, what we're going to talk about in just a moment is I want you to get that sweaty mess, nervous moment out of the way before it's the real deal, right? Because one of the most important things you can do before a negotiation is to prepare. Now, that's not like a sexy, straight away, like silver bullet quick fix, but it works. If you're asking for a $200 pay raise, I'm pretty sure you've got this and you'll be fine. But if you're looking for 2,000, 5,000 extra bucks a year, a $10,000 pay raise, 30K more a year, maybe even more. I've had clients who've negotiated $103,000 pay raises. If that's what you want, I am so here for it. And I want you to prepare accordingly, right? You've got to put in the hard yards first. So I kind of like to think of it like when you're preparing for a negotiation, we can kind of like liken it a little bit to detective work, like pretend that you're kind of getting your magnifying glass out and we're going to do a heap of fact finding before we even get into the room. Because, sometimes a lot of people say to me like, oh, I can't negotiate because like, I don't know what's going to happen and I don't know what they're going to say. But I want to challenge that because like, yeah, what do you reckon? Like if you're going into a negotiation, from my perspective, there's 3 alternatives of things that they could say. What do you reckon one of the alternatives is that they might come back with?
Yes, no,
Yep.
or well, let us think about it.
Oh my gosh, we didn't even prepare that. Right. So they can say yes, they can say no, or they can say maybe I'll think about it, somewhere in between. So like logically and rationally, we kind of know that's what's going to happen. We don't know why they're going to say yes or no, but we can start to think about that. So this is why like grabbing out your pen and paper, again, it's pretty basic, but grab out a pen and paper. What is the outcome? Yes, no, maybe, right? What are the alternatives? What could that look like? If they say maybe, how are you going to pivot that conversation from there, right? If they say no, you've got a couple of options. You could say, okay, thanks anyway, and walk out or exit the Zoom room. Or you could say, hey, listen, thanks so much for communicating that to me. I'd love to understand why that was the decision. let's ask more questions. And we can be very polite about it. We don't have to be aggressive. We don't have to cry in the meeting. We don't have to do anything like that. We can just ask questions and say, I'm so interested. Tell me why you came to that decision. And let's get some more information. And they might say, well, no one's getting a raise until April. And then you can say, oh, okay, that's interesting. Could we continue this conversation on the 2nd of April then, do you think? Let's try and find an alternative so that it's getting closer to that outcome that you're really looking for in that negotiation. So this is a really great question that's coming through too. How do you know what to ask for? So how do you prep for the pay raise or the promotion conversation if you don't even know what you want in the first place? Did you experience this back in your corporate days, Yaya, as well?
Yes. And even still, I find that so often we just don't know what we want. And we may
Mm,
have a general sense of what we want, but when it comes down to specifics, if someone were to ask you right now, tell me what you want and I'll give it to you, how
yep.
many of us would have to sit and think about it forever because we're so focused oftentimes on how we can add value to others and give others what
Yes.
they want, figure out what they want, that we're not really thinking about what we want specifically.
This is it's such a good point that you make. A lot of us think in order to get paid more or get promoted, we have to work harder. We got to take on more projects. We got to be more of a martyr. We got to fill that calendar up and fill the to-do list up, right? And I know y'all are already doing that, right? I know you're high achievers. I know you are because you wouldn't be here if you weren't, right? You're not going to be bothering to waste your time on professional development if you're not a high achiever. So the reality is that, as you progress through your career, there comes a point where you actually need to start to work work smarter and more strategically, right? So if you are doing all this great stuff, if your boss doesn't know about it, did it even happen? It's kind of like if you're not doing your own PR, who's
Mhm.
doing it for you, right? And I don't have a publicist. I don't know if you do, Yaya, but most of us don't have a publicist.
Right.
So you got to do your own PR. And it doesn't mean you have to turn into one of those awful people who you hate seeing on LinkedIn or who you hate on social media because they kind of trumpet their horn in a way that doesn't feel cool for you. It doesn't feel genuine or authentic. You don't have to be like that. You can be your own self and you can be really comfortable with that, but you can still communicate strategically your successes to the right people, right? So there's always decision makers in business. And as you progress through your career, you got to figure out who is that person. Is it your boss or is it actually the boss's boss who's pulling the strings?
Mm.
It might be your boss's executive assistant because they have unbelievable amounts of power purely by virtue of the fact that they can get you into their calendar or not. Right. So you've got to kind of think about where is the capacity for me to influence decision makers so that they understand the value that I'm bringing to the business. Right. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But to the question that's come through, and welcome to everyone who's joining, please pop your questions in the chat. We would love to hear from you. We're talking about salary success for 2022. We are almost at the end of the first month. Can you believe it? So we want to really give you strategies today that you can use throughout the year so that you can negotiate a raise or that promotion without feeling as stressed and anxious, right? I want you all to be successful. One of the reasons I started PepTalkHer and built the free PepTalkHer app, which Declan can chuck a link in the chat for you all. We've got a free app that you can download. It's like a virtual brag book, basically. And it's going to be like, yeah, what's up? Like, what are you really proud of this week? Or Declan, what's happened this week that you want to remember at pay raise time? Right. So it's going to kind of prompt you to focus on those successes because you find this in your coaching as well. I'm sure, Yaya, often we spiral
Mhm.
downwards when we make a mistake and we focus on that and we forget all the cool stuff we've done, right?
Yes, that is, I've worked with women on asking for more for a long time now. And one of the things that I find that women do a lot more often than men is disqualify ourselves based on a single mistake rather than building on all of the great things that you're doing and the value that you're providing.
That is such a good point too, and I think that that's true. Like it's a set of building blocks, isn't it? And building them up throughout your career and again communicating them so that
Mhm.
they become part of your brand within the business. So the bosses understand not only did you complete that project, you managed a team of 10 and you hired 3 new people.
Yes.
Yes, you completed the project, but what went into that? You showed leadership. You actually have meant that the client has signed on for longer, which is contributing another $200,000 to the business or
Mhm.
whatever. We want you to quantify that because all of these bits of statistics that you're writing down and entering into the app, they're all forming data points that you can then use when you go into these conversations. Because, there's a great question from Sarah that's come in that's like, it's kind of hard to know what am I even going to ask for. So I want you to reflect on all of the successes that you've had and then see, like, if you were to project that forward into a stretch role for yourself, what could that look like? And then consequently, what could the pay packet look like for that role that comes with it? Right. So we talk a lot about the fact that when you're walking into one of these conversations, you've got to do the preparation because if you leave it up to your boss, listen, some of us get lucky with great managers and great bosses, and they will offer you a raise. But a lot of us don't find those leaders in the workforce, right? And so we need to be the ones proactively asking the question. And I
Mhm.
want you to be asking for a raise every year. I want you to be a higher performer, which I know you are. And then I'm taking that as a given. Once you're doing great work, I want you to ask for that raise. Especially now, there's never been a better time to ask for a raise. Couple of reasons. First one, inflation. It's going bananas, right? So it's up, what are we, 7% now, which
7.
means that it's getting 7% more expensive to live our life. So if you get nothing or 3% or 6%, you're actually sliding backwards. So
Mhm.
you've got to be getting 7% or more to just stay even. So that's the reality of where we are right now. The other thing is that, the pandemic, which has led to the great resignation, means that there's a lot of moving pieces, more than ever, right? People are changing jobs, leaving the workforce, moving cities. That creates opportunities for you. You can still leverage that to stay at your existing company if you're quite happy, but you can also use this as a chance to reach out to a recruiter. If you really have no idea your value in market, talk to a recruiter, right? Because things can change. Like you might have been worth $70,000 last year, maybe you're worth 95 this year. Maybe you're worth 72 this year. I don't know, but recruiters will have much more up-to-date information for you, right? So just check them out on LinkedIn. There's always recruiters that are specific to your field. And often, 9 times out of 10, they'll be more than happy to jump on a call, right? So they're going to have very up-to-date information about salary and also job opportunities for you. Of course, Dr. Google is always our friend and we can find a lot of information there, but I will share a sneaky little resource that I think you will like. It's called this is like, I actually don't normally share this, but I'm feeling that I need to share this with you all today. So
Listen,
I'm
be
gonna,
generous.
what's that?
Be generous.
Yeah, this is a secret hack. So like I really want you all to have access to this. So basically what it is, when American companies hire people from overseas, when they sponsor their visas, they have to publicly declare what those people are earning. So it's on record and it's up to date. So if I'm Google, if I'm LinkedIn, if I'm a mining company and I hire someone today, that information goes on this website, which I've just shared with you in the chat, right? So you can look up your company and see what people are being paid, not their names, but you'll see their title. And this is very current and up-to-date information, right? So you got to take this with a grain of salt with other research points as well that we talk about further in our programming at PepTalkHer. And I won't sort of bore you with the hours of that right now, but this is a great, great place to start. So I highly recommend you check that out. The other thing is we know, sadly, that there is a gender pay gap, right? We know that people of color are paid less than their white colleagues, right? I hate this situation and I want it to change. And that's what we're working towards at PepTalkHer. Given that we know this gap exists, one of the things you should be doing is making sure that the people that you talk to about your salary expectations, typically I recommend you talk to a white bloke, right? Like talk to at least one white man, preferably in your industry, because their benchmark of their expectation for salary may be quite different to yours. Did you ever have this in your career, Yaya?
Yes, absolutely. Prior to becoming a mother and coming home, I had a manager who was training me to become a manager. And he was asking, he was a white man. He was like, well, what do you want to be paid? And when I told him,
Yeah.
he's like, oh, no, 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 no. That's not what we're doing. I broke up. He said, oh, no, that's not what we're doing. And it
Wow.
was in that moment that I realized that whether it's systemically or we've just kind of been programmed to ask for less as women, to kind of shrink to the back or disappear into the back, we always start low. And I had an uncle who told me, he said, start high and let them negotiate you down. Never start at the bottom.
Yes. And that's a great segue, and it's true because there's this thing that happens called anchoring bias, right? So essentially what that means is the first person who throws out a number, whether I throw out,
Mhm.
$88,000 or $300,000, whatever it is, that is the initial number, right? Like stake in the ground. Like even if I said $3 million, doesn't matter what the number is, I have anchored the conversation. That's where we're starting. So if I say $3 million, it's pretty unlikely they're going to come back and say we were thinking $2 an hour, because it's just so far apart, right? So that can be the power in starting high. Now, in order to start high, you've got to have pretty good data to start with. Sometimes we actually want them to start because we really have no idea. So it just depends where you are in the process, whether they have transparent salary bands that are readily available that you can research. How many recruiters have you spoken to who've given you a ballpark? Have you talked to people who work at that company or used to, who can kind of give you some ranges? Sometimes I'll give you an example. I had a recruiter reach out to me a few years ago for a big leadership role at a media company. I didn't want the job. I was very happy running my own business, but I took the call because I thought, well, why not? And I did not want this job. So when you don't want the job, it's a lot easier to throw out a crazy number. So I threw out a bananas number, a crazy number. And the recruiter came back and said, oh, yeah, look, I thought you'd be expensive. Actually, it's slightly lower, but, I told them they should put the budget up, blah, 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 blah. I could do that because I didn't really want the conversation to go any further and I didn't care. If you're in a position where you're desperate for a job, sometimes the way you want to approach it can be slightly different. Because again, we know that sometimes when you put out a number that's too high, you can, in some situations, in fact, inadvertently rule yourself out of being considered going forwards, right? But there's language that you can use that can help counterbalance that, right? So you can say things like, listen, I'd love to understand what you've budgeted for this role, given the seniority of this position. So I haven't said, how much are you paying? I kind of have, but I've said it in a way that says, well, this is a pretty big role. Like I'm taking this seriously. I want you to take it seriously too, right? You can say things like, I'm really well compensated where I am right now. So I'm looking for a very impressive offer to help me make this move, a viable decision for my family and I. So again, you're kind of just indicating, hey, if you want me to come on board, you got to kind of come to the party. But you're also sort of fishing for information and data points from them, right? But you do need to know your numbers and you've got to be really comfortable talking about money. A lot of us were raised and it was a bit taboo. I don't know about you, Yaya, but like in my family, it was a bit awkward talking about cash and money.
I wouldn't say it was awkward. I would
Yeah.
say it was not functional. And that can be an entirely different conversation. But I do
Right.
find that as women, we get so uncomfortable when we're talking about money, especially when it comes to asking for money.
We do. And we're going to talk about actually what that's a good point. One of the things I'm going to ask you all to do is we're going to talk about money before we get into this pay raise conversation. So I'm going to get to that in just a second. But anytime you're going to have a conversation with a prospective employer, even a recruiter, honestly, I want you to have a bit of a sense of your numbers. Even if you haven't nailed it down exactly, I do want you to have ballpark. So the way I like to think about it is you've got to think about, your numbers as the WWW, your wish, your want, and your walk, right? Those are the three numbers. Literally, I want you to write it down, Post-it notes, notepad, Google Doc, I don't care. You got to have it written down on paper. I'll tell you why. When you walk into that meeting and money comes up, you're probably, most of us, we're going to go on the inside, like we're going to go, oh my gosh, money. Oh, this is awkward. Am I going to get the job? Do they hate me? Do they like me? Oh my gosh. Right. So if you've done some mental gymnastics beforehand, that's a great thing because you've been rational, you've been calm, you've been relaxed, having a soda or whatever while you kind of do your research and figure out your numbers. Which means that when you go into that more stressful environment of a recruiter conversation or an interview, you've kind of taken some of the fear and anxiety away from those numbers already. So we want to think about what's that wish number. So everyone can do this now. You're going to do this in conjunction with research, right? But even just to start with, think about what you're earning now. Think about kind of ballpark, what do you know about what others earn around you in the similar space and what you'd love to earn, what you think would be kind of like a really amazing amount of money for you to earn. Like think big, and then whatever you're thinking, I want you to think bigger again, right? So think about what that number is, write it down. We're going to write it down on a piece of paper. And then I'm going to get you to scribble it out, and I want you to add tax. So add tax to whatever you already wrote down. Because, often we don't think big enough for ourselves, right? And again, when you're trying to figure out the exact minutiae of this number, you need to do research, which we talk about. We've got a free career challenge coming up. I've popped the link in the chat for you, and we talk about this in more detail there, so we can help you further with that too. But just for now, this is what you want to be thinking about. The other end of the spectrum is your walk number, which is where you're like, I am not getting out of bed for that amount of money, right? I'm either not going to accept the job or I'm going to quit. That's your walk number, right? So you want to write that down as well. And then your want is kind of somewhere in between. And that's the number where you're like, I'd actually be pretty stoked to be paid this number. That's fair and reasonable given my experience, and value in market right now. So this is some of the things that you can do to prepare for these salary conversations ahead of time, right? And we want to kind of anxietyify almost our brain before we get into those meetings. So I want you all to be having practice conversations with your BFF, your uncle, your dad, your cousin, your mentor before you go into these conversations. Because your brain then will kind of go through some of the stress of the practice back and forth, saying the number out loud, so that then when it's the real deal, you will be slightly more chilled and you'll feel much more confident and empowered walking into that conversation. So listen, happy to take any further questions. I do want to be respectful of your time. I know you're all super busy professionals. But yeah, I will pop a link in the chat. I think Yaya's already put the link in there for you. We've got a free career challenge that we're kicking off in about 10 days. So I'll be running a free live coaching call for you, similar to this, every single day. We'll send you an email that's got a 5-minute challenge for you. That's it. And I'll give you a sneak peek of one of the challenges. One of the days you have to actually go and ask for a discount. And I won't give it away too much, but you've got to go and do that again, because I'm training your brain to get used to asking the question in a low consequence environment where it doesn't really matter, right? In a store or something like that. And that's teaching your brain that even then, when you walk into a fancy boardroom or a Zoom meeting with important executives or bosses, you're going to feel way more comfortable about asking for the salary that you really deserve.
I'm literally going to join this challenge just so that I can be able to ask for discounts, because my mom, we were traveling once and she's like haggler supreme. She is going to, if we're in like a
love that
market or outdoor market, she is going to get the best price. And I'm always like, I would never ask anyone to lower their prices. What do you mean? And she said, this is their job and they actually get pleasure out of negotiation. You've got to give them that, because then they feel like, well, I could have told her a higher price if she was just going to pay that price. So exactly. that was like a mental reprogramming for me to be able to ask for discounts.
Yeah, and it's a lot of this honestly is reprogramming, and it comes back to the way that we're socialized. None of this is our fault, by the way, but a lot of it is reprogramming so that you can get the best outcome that you can possible, right, in that conversation, because this can be game changing. And I know it's awkward to have these conversations, and I know that you'd probably rather be watching Netflix than talking to your boss about salary. But, I'll give you an example. One of the women in our course, she got, I think it was like $36,000 or something more. She put in a pool for her kids. So like that money literally has changed her family's life, right? Like her kids will learn how to swim better, all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of cool to know that like genuinely, you can change the course of your family's life by
Mhm.
asking the question. And I think that's really exciting. And I'm excited for all of y'all. And I know that it's not easy, right? But we're here to support you. Yaya and I are both on Instagram at Feminine Success and at PepTalkHer, and we would love to stay in touch and hear more about your journey as you go through the year, asking for hopefully more money this year.
Yes, the money is out there, y'all. Somebody's got to make it. Let it be you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let us know, like, stay in touch. If you have any questions, I'm on LinkedIn too. I'll pop my little link in the chat there for you so that we can say hi on LinkedIn too. But if you've got further questions, send me a DM on Instagram, Pep Talk Her, or just hit me up on LinkedIn. And then, yeah, join the challenge. It's going to be so fun. You'll see Yaya and I there as well. So you'll have a couple of familiar faces. And the other cool thing is, like, it's just a great community of like-minded professionals, just like you all, who are like aspirational, successful, they go on places, they expect things from themselves, and we're there to support you to get there. So I can't wait.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time today, Meggie, and for supporting my community.
Yeah,
Ladies, do know that this is a live challenge. So this is not, you're just getting emails in your inbox. You're getting real hands-on support. So make sure that you take advantage. And Zinga says, should I sign up for the challenge since I'm looking for a new job, or is it more for people who are already in a position? This is perfect for you if you're looking for a new job, actually. You want to
it
go
is.
in with these skills.
You really do. And really the core of the challenge is knowing your worth.
Mhm.
Knowing your worth and asking for it. So I don't care if you're in a job for 20 years, if you've been there for 2 years, or you're on the hunt for a new job. Frankly, if you're, even just looking to kind of save money on your utility bills, you can use these techniques in all sorts of different places, and that's what we see our clients do. They'll save on their cell phone bill. That's not the point of the challenge. I'm happy. I want them to be earning lots and lots of more money at work, which they do, but the inadvertent side effect is that you'll actually shift the way you feel about yourself in here. And that's kind of cool. I think it's cool anyway. So I love seeing the results. I'd love to see you in there, Zinger. That'd be so fun.
I love that. Eden says this
Welcome,
is really
Eden.
helpful and so
Yay.
on time. Much appreciated. Eden is one of my clients who is also about to be transitioning in her career. So this is
Amazing.
awesome and perfectly on time. Thank you again for your time
Uh,
today, Maggie, and for your
Such a
expertise.
pleasure. Yeah, we'll stay in touch, everyone. I so appreciate you. Stay safe, and thanks again. Yeah, yeah. We'll speak to you soon.
All
Thanks,
right, y'all have
Sarah.
a good one.
Cheers, y'all. Bye.